Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear people, so we are in a time where many things come up that they were hidden and will come up that they are hidden. And this is part of our transition to a new model, because we have to see what is happening behind the curtains, what is happening in us, on a very deep level. And it is also important to understand what happens in our societies, things that cannot happen. When we look to the medieval age, we found a situation that the religious world was dominating the view and the understanding about their existence, how people live, what people should think, what people should believe. And in our time, this kind of position that how we should look at things, how we should understand things, has been very much overtaken by science. And the Sufi tradition called themselves often also the scientists, which means they were eager to research, to know, and as a matter of fact, in the history of Islam, they were making milestones on a scientific level, be it in the medical world, be in the chemical world, be in the astronomy. They were kind of leading civilization at that time. So one of the most interesting things that happen now are in the field of archaeology. Since sometimes, because of the improvement of radars, of X-ray technology, of also the technology that determines the age of things, carbon estimation and so on, have been found more and more evidence that the way we know our history in the Western archaeology is not exactly like it has been. And why it is so important to know about those things, because they give us a complete new understanding and also a message for our current situation. So in our history, we have been going through cycles of destruction. And this is a kind of pattern that we can see in our human history, and it appears usually every 12,500 years, more or less in that range. And we said it often before, we are now in the half of this cycle of humanity, which is 25,000 years. And the way the changes are coming, the last time were through water, through the big flood. And in geology and archaeology, it is called the Ice Age. So when the Ice Age came to the end, there was a lot of water freed, and this created these floods. In the time of the Ice Age, the land masses were much, much more than today, because the level of the ocean was 120 meters less. So when the water came, there were a lot of land covered that wasn't covered before. And it is very important to understand that. So things happened before, and people could move from various areas to lands that are nowadays are not able to be reached by food or by this kind of ways. Yeah. So there is almost without doubt that there have been civilizations before us. Yeah, and we hear names like Atlantis, we hear names like Lemuria, we hear these names. And they have been found texts mainly in the Sumeric tradition, in the Sumeric writing, which is the first writing that has ever been found, that is dated as the first appearance of writing. Yeah. The problem with Sumeric texts is that there is not much of a reference to any language in our nowadays languages. So it takes a lot of time to decipher those texts. However, there are texts, for example, about a dynasty of kings that had been lived almost 100,000 years ago. Yeah, we find archaeological proof that buildings had been built at least 15,000 or more years ago, 20,000 years ago, and so on and so on. So it is coming up, and it will have a message to our science, to our world of science. Because what happens when new things come up from the past is that the majority of scientists denies. Yeah, for good reason, because all they have learned, all they have taught, is not anymore valid in the face of this new information. And the same will happen to biology. Not so much to chemistry, not so much to mathematics, again more to physics, because also the world of physics has changed a lot through the experiments of CERN, for example. And but the physics have always lived with a lot of changes, and they were open. It was the most open science, actually, while the biology, geology, and archaeology are the most resistant scientists among the science world. And so there are thousands, and if not tens of thousands, of artifacts that make no sense in any way that the archaeologists have described up to now our situation. And the same is for biology. All this theory of how evolution happened cannot be really held up in the knowledge of these new informations that they are there. Yeah, the same for geology. Yeah, it is, for example, clear that there are a lot of more water in a deep level of the earth than what they thought. Yeah, but all this is not really validated, and it is like hold down. Yeah, because what will happen if we understand what an earlier high civilization was actually bringing to us, and what was actually their messages, and what was actually their way of life also. Yeah. So it was always an interest in these earlier civilizations to leave something behind for the ones who come after, as good advices, as good teachings, and this is what we call traditions. No? Now, very often history thinks that all these books, that these sacred books that we call sacred books, sacred texts, are like myth. Yeah, that they have nothing to do with the reality, that they are all kinds of myths, because it's very difficult to find evidence, that these things have really happened and they were existing. No? But as we said before, there are existing and there are evidences, and when we understand that the mythology is not just a mythology, but it is realities, it changes our whole perspective completely. And we will come to know that we are not the only beings in the universe, that there has been relationships from long time ago to other species, whatever. And this is important to understand. It is important to understand that we are embedded in a cosmic situation. Yeah. Now we have a kind of earth-centric view, in ourselves and also in science. Yeah. And we will shift this in the new time. It will shift to a cosmic view, as well as just an outer view, but also our inner view. What is our origin? Yeah. Is it Earth or is it not Earth? Yeah. Are we coming from somewhere else, for example? Yeah. And of course, this will shaken the religious world also a lot. Yeah. But it is our duty to allow truth inside of us and also outside. Yeah. This is a must. If you want to see yourself as a serious and sincere person, then you should be open-minded to everything that comes with evidence, with proof, and not to deny. Yeah. Denial is ignorance, and ignorance is one of the worst things you can do to yourself. Yeah. So this is the time where things come up, and we have to support those who bring them up for the benefit of humanity. Yeah. Be it in the spiritual field, be it in the scientific field, wherever it is. Yeah. So prepare yourself that higher forces wants us to know. And we say in our tradition, it's your birthright to know. Yeah. You have this right to know. Because the source, the origin of all, the creator, wants to be known. And this is what he put in our heart. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.